Good morning, everyone. Welcome. Thanks for coming back. We have people from all over. We have a new participant from Miami Beach. We would stay safe. Stay safe, Alina. Everyone, I hope you're well. I hope that things are going as well as they possibly can for you. I know I've heard from some of you via email that you've had challenges this week, but many of you have made at least partial inroads on solutions. Yes, it's tiring. Yes, it's mentally fatiguing and challenging, but you did it. All right, you did it. And I want those of you who shared with me that it was like, it was because there was an event that was coming up and you absolutely needed to do it. I want you to keep that in your memory banks. And I want you to remind yourself every day, all right, that that's what you want to avoid. That unnecessary pressure. I just need to make Jim the, Jim, down here. Jim the co-host. There. Sorry, guys. 1 sec. Yes. That's you. Right, Jim? Okay, good. We're going to do a tiny review because I had some feedback that the material from last week was so new and so powerful for many people that they wanted me to go over some of it. Now we're going to do more than that this week, but I did want to start out with a tiny review. And so this week's subject is establishing and protecting our sense of autonomy and how we do it through procrastination. Sounds like a contradiction, doesn't it? But it isn't. It can be a conscious device that we use, a strategy, or it can be an unconscious. We think it's just happening because that's what we tell ourselves, but we don't back up from what we're actually doing that shows us there's a pattern. So all I want you to do, no self-blame, no self-recrimination, no putting yourself down or finding fault with yourself. None of that, please, okay? Be your own observer. Be an independent observer on whether anything I'm talking about today for you is a pattern. And if you recognize that there are patterns, all I want you to do is to be conscious of it, because becoming mindful or conscious about something is the absolute first step to making that device or that behavior a choice. All right? We want to give ourselves choices. There may be times when procrastination is, I think there are 2 people in the waiting room. Jim, can you let them in?
Yep, I'm getting them in.
Okay, good, thanks. Okay, so procrastination can be a statement, conscious or unconscious, deliberate or not, to prove one's independence. To say, I decide who I am. I choose my own actions and the timing. I don't dance to someone else's tune. My life can't be interrupted. My priorities, my days can't be interrupted because somebody has an expectation and then that I am responsible and beholden to that. No one else can make demands on me, all right? Procrastination can also be a way to resist. And that feeling, even though it's unconscious, that subtle kind of feeling that you reassure yourself that through this, Perhaps by accident, you tell yourself.
Oh.
You're living on your own terms, all right? Procrastination can also be more about your need to express your feelings of independence, because it's also that sense of independence is also a measure of your own personal self-worth, your self-esteem. You don't feel that good about yourself when you think you're dancing to someone else's tune, or you're beholden, or you can't set a plan in motion that can't be co-opted by someone else. Now, this is different. This use of procrastination is different, all right, from what we've been talking about. It is still inaction. Yes, it is. But it comes from a different place than the inaction we've been talking about in the weeks past. The fear of success, the fear of failure. This is more a fear. It's still a fear. It's a fear of being controlled. But instead, this way, the inaction, rather than be a deficit, actually is a device to gain control. All right. Instead of inaction expressing your ability to control, to be out of control, and sort of thrown to the wind because of fear of failure and fear of success. This inaction expresses your ability to control situations and people as a way to express your success and your power over the influences and expectations of others. You are not avoidant in this case. This is can be conscious, can be unconscious, but you're in control. You think you're taking control. That's what it feels like, the end product. Ironically, using procrastination in this way does the opposite. This is what I want you to be aware of. And this is what people told me this week in many emails that I received. Can you just go over that again? Because I wasn't aware of that, and I think that's me. So ironically, using procrastination in this way does the opposite. It proves that the person feels what they fear the most, that they're not in control, that they can't be in control, that they're not worthy, they're not important when somebody else can make demands or other people can have expectations of them, even when those expectations are reasonable. All right. The reason it's exactly the opposite to that feeling of, in some negative way, you've got control. It's not that, because you're not setting your own path and making small or large decisions every day that move you forward on your own plan for your own life. Do you understand that? That by using this reactive device, this behavior, as it were, you're actually reacting to other people. So you're not in control. You're not in control of anything. That means that anytime anyone expects something, asks something, suggests something, recommends something, your reaction to it means you're not in control, because those events can happen anytime, which means that at any point of any day, you go into reaction mode. All right, that's not what you want to do, because when you're in reactive mode, you're not thinking of yourself. You're focusing on the other guy. You're focusing on what being expected, or what you feel, or how you feel their input. Let's just call it input. Their input to you. You're reacting to that rather than just assess it. Does it make sense? Does it give you something as well as them? Does it actually give them any power or control? Are you part of a system? Sometimes it could be, excuse me, personal relationships. It could be jobs. It could be clubs, it could be committees, or it could be anything that you're part of in your day-to-day life. You play a part. If you play your part, you're in control, right? If you react to those, like somehow this becomes a struggle or a battle, you've lost control. Now you're reactive, you're not proactive. And when you're reactive, you're not thinking about what your life needs. You're not looking at your needs. You're taking this one need for control and you're making all of your needs take second and third fiddle. All right? Remember I asked you last week and the week before and the week before that, what are your A-list needs? What are those things that are true about you that you expect of yourself, but you also insist on from others if you're going to be in any kind of a relationship? What are those A-list needs? All right, a common one is respect. Another common one is fair and equitable treatment. All right, and then you may have your others. What are your B-list needs? Those needs that you don't need in every single personal transaction that you enter into or that you inadvertently become part of. But you need them a lot of the time, all right? They're not very far behind your A-list needs. What are your C-list needs? Those are the icing on the cake needs. And once in a while, I gave you the example last week of Mother's Day driving with my son somewhere and somebody passed me in a Porsche and I thought, oh, someday I'd like to drive a Porsche. I was clear, I don't want to own one because I don't want to have to maintain it. But I just love to kind of get in and work the gears, and I want it to be, if it could be a standard, that would be even better, just for the experience, all right? And lo and behold, guess what my son gave me as a gift certificate? An event that I can go to where I can drive the Porsche one time. That's a C-list need. It's a bucket list need. What are yours? Those are the ones that are going to give you the little jolt of joy, all right, rather than the trip to the dollar store or that next thing that you use that fills the void, that will never be enough because it's the wrong thing to give you joy. And no matter how many of them you have, all you're going to have is piles of things that didn't meet your need. That's why you need so many. It's the wrong thing. Procrastination can be that way as well, all right? But you're not even aware of A-list, B-list, C-list needs while you're reacting. This constant reminder, okay, is a reactive mindset. And what that does, all right, it does another thing too. It doesn't just deprive you from even being aware of what your needs are. You're so focused on the other guy and what they're doing and how that's making you feel, all right? It also reinforces, it feeds the fear and anxiety, thereby prompting resistance to any other influences, even positive ones. Right? Now, you're not just in a reactive mindset, rather, you are in a fear. Like now you have to be on your toes, anticipating what's that person's next requirement going to be? How are you going to get out of this? Every encounter then, you can start developing anticipatory fear and resistance. You're always on the lookout, okay? Every encounter can take on exaggerated importance. Maybe this is the one. What are they up to? What's really behind that person's request? When we understand that procrastination can be, for some, hopefully not all, and sometimes it's not just for some people, it's for many of us some of the time. We give up control, the very thing we're looking for, self-esteem and control. Everybody has their own personal level of need for control, all right? But sometimes when we understand that procrastination can be for some a battle for more than just control, it's a battle for evidence of a measure that in some important way to you, you matter. We then, if we do accept that sometimes that can happen, we can understand then why losing those little skirmishes and battles, always having to be right, always needing to correct someone when they make some completely unimportant error, causes intense, powerful fear. If we're not in control, we can't trust necessarily the guy who might be. So then every jockeying for position, having to be right, having to do intensive, time-consuming research to be absolutely precise, having to fix that picture on the wall of somebody else's office or somebody else's home, okay? Even a single small defeat or error can leave you feeling compromised. That's that anxiety, all right? That's that anxiety. And put upon, like, who are they? Like, I'm just relaxing here. I have my own wishes. Who are they to make me feel guilty because I don't do something? Or get into the should. We know about the shoulds, folks, okay? Should is a shovel, so if you're not in a deep enough hole right now, get that should shovel out and dig yourself in a little deeper, because it will only make you feel more vulnerable, more defensive, and more overwhelmed. So please, let's make a commitment to ourselves today to do two things. What's our motto? Live forward. All right, deal with today, live forward. And let's put that awareness cap on. Let's do an assessment before we automatically accept or deny or struggle against a request or a job or a task or a pile. We procrastinate against inanimate things as well, all right, when we should ourselves to death, rather than look at why are you here? Why do you take your time, your precious time and energy to attend these podcasts? Because you have a dream, you have a wish, all right? Are you using procrastination? Is that pile becoming the enemy? Does it represent something? Somebody, maybe a voice from the past. Maybe it's part of a voice on your committee, all right? That committee in your head that tells you what to do, what you shouldn't do. Maybe this is right, maybe this is wrong. Maybe I could, maybe I couldn't. And you go round and round the voices on that committee, right? Until you create almost a character of the piles, because you're reacting to mom and dad who said you weren't able to go out Saturday night if your room wasn't clean, if your homework wasn't done. Remember we talked last week and I had emails from a number of you about growing up in an overly rigid, overly controlled family where parents had like really rigid, authoritarian, even moderately authoritarian expectations and rules, where you never got to bump your head and realize, look, regardless of whether they're saying I have to do something, I actually want to do that because it's in my best interest. You never got to that point because somebody was so controlling. All right? It's the time to live forward. Let that go. What's in your best interest? When you look around the piles in your home or the pathways or the things that are really frustrating and irritating you, are you using procrastination as a defense? All right? And if you are, what are your needs? And every day, meet one need because they belong to you. And that's the way you do take control of your own life. Never mind that it was a rule growing up, or somebody in your life right now is bothering you or bugging you or judging you. Never mind that. Set that aside. They can't win if you don't resist. Go to yourself. What is in your best interest? What do you want from your life? All right, and there will be short-term desires. There will be longer-term desires. And longer-term desires or goals are those piles and pathways. Do one thing today for yourself. I don't care who else asked you to do it, suggested, or has been berating you for not doing it. Do it for you and never mind what they want, all right? Because when you do that, then life is just a battleground where you fight every rule. It gets to be knee-jerk. It gets to be your default place to go. Please don't do that to yourself. You're undermining your own autonomy, your own self-respect, all right? Your own self-worth. You will never get your A-list, B-list, or C-list needs met if you do that. And you'll argue about every point, even mentally, even if you don't say it here. Nobody can make me. Or you'll ask for special consideration, extension of rules, okay? In large ways, in small ways, that continually make you someone who expects extra attention. Extra effort has to be made on your behalf. Okay, this also uses up time. It causes frustration in others and resentment. And it sets you apart. You're no longer an equal. You're some special needs person who has to be handled with special treatment. You're not equal. You've just made yourself set apart. And you probably inadvertently have also made yourself somebody who has to be ignored in some way, judged in some way, resented in some way, all right? You may also unconsciously, at the same time, as you get into this battle, even if it's with voices from the past, it doesn't have to be people who are present in your life right now. I work with a gentleman and he is still filling his house. I mean, we're talking filling his house, all right? Because he is still that wound from being over-controlled, from never having the right to have his opinion count, to have what he wanted, which was perfectly reasonable, all right? He's still unconsciously reacting to that. And so now it's become, and maybe for you in some ways as well, unconsciously he is assessing his environment, all right? And every time there's an expectation, he creates a conflict because he automatically sees whoever, some innocent person making a request, he automatically sees that through the eyes of the child who was so controlled. And he doesn't even assess whether what they're suggesting or requesting is in his best interest. Everything is a threat, and everything makes him feel less than. Is any part of that true for you, even sometimes? And if it is, please, let's put your conscious, your proactive hat on, all right? And add one step. Put yourself on pause and think, assess one question. What does this suggestion give me? What can it give me? What can it do for me? And what can it do for my surroundings? Might be people, might be your home, All right, might be the environment you count on to nurture you and make you feel peaceful and welcome when you come home, rather than with the blinders on, there's endless lists of jobs and files. Because they believe that whoever is in control has the upper hand. Most things require a team. All right, most things require a team. It's okay to sometimes be a member of the team rather than in control. And having to even subtly be on guard may also keep you in a constant state of hypervigilance. Are any of you aware of being on edge, hypervigilant, anxious all the time, and at the ready, just in case you need to protect yourself against some unreasonable request or expectation, or someone else's needs get met rather than yours, and you resist authority automatically? Somebody tells me what to do, I automatically do the opposite. Who's in control there, folks? Okay, you just gave up control. I automatically react. Remember, reaction is loss. All right, reaction is defeat, because you will never get your needs met if you are reacting. I see Leanne. Yeah, Leanne is sending us a message saying, I've spent most of my life like that. Leanne, you're not alone. Today, live forward. Be aware of where those influences are coming from, the voices. Some of those voices are probably the voices on your mental committee, all right? Be aware of them, because even a stop clock is right twice a day. So sometimes those recommendations, those requests, those suggestions, those duties, those obligations, sometimes they're going to be right. But you're only going to know that if you stop and ask yourself, how can this work positively for me? What is there in this suggestion that actually gives me something? All right. And is that something I want and need? I may still do it, but I might not make it a priority. I might negotiate. I might actually use the power I actually have that I give up when I react. I might actually use that power and say, you know, that's a good suggestion. It just can't be a priority for me right now. What do you think the best before date is? I'm really glad that you've been learning to do that. Okay, always ask, is there something positive in this for me? And what is there positive that will add to the good of those around me? Not at my expense, but because I am part of the whole. Whether it's a family or a team or your own home, all right, your own living environment, your relationships. Stop and do that assessment. It doesn't have to preempt anything else you have planned or that you want or need. That's where you use your power and you negotiate. Right now, my priority is this. You don't have to give reasons. You're a grown-up, all right? You're allowed to have priorities and not be explaining yourself to every Tom, Dick, and Harry. All right? But how would it be? When does that actually need to be done? And I don't think I can do that much of it, but let me think about what I can add to that project, and I'll get back to you by tomorrow. Okay, and then we'll make a plan from there to get this done. I'm on board, but I need to know that I can keep my word to myself, I can take care of myself, and I can also help you out, okay? You're sacrificing when you don't do that. What you're doing is you're sacrificing something that is one of the most significant things that most people are in search of, and that is your right. Your God-given right by birth to a life that contains peace, happiness, and stability. You are already worthy. All right, you are already worthy. You don't need to prove it by obstructing. All right? That's not going to give you what you need. Occasionally, when you stop and do that assessment, all right, how can this add positively to my life by agreeing to do that or part of it? By doing that, you give yourself the right to input and being part of something that adds to your stability. All right? You can't be reactive. You cannot be in a reactive mindset perpetually or even a lot of the time. And living with your balanced physical and mental health. If you're reactive, every time you're reactive, all right, you're giving up control and you are compromising your mental health and in time, your physical health as well. The reason for that is in order to be reactive and kind of see the next incoming missile or incoming challenge or incoming demand, right? You have to be living on your toes like a boxer, always ready to dip and dive, all right? Like, who's coming? What's that? What's in it for them? And when that generates a secret, all right? Because usually people don't admit that. Internal battle, which challenges your own right to self-determination. Now, nothing is 100%. There is no one on the face of this earth, right, who is 100% autonomous because we are social beings. We accept that there is a price to pay. All right. And some of that price is that sometimes we compromise for the general good. All right. Don't let the use of procrastination like that be an overriding theme in your life, because you're not living your life. You are not living the life you were given. You're living what the other guy is making of your life. Well, he or she may not even mean to do that. You're accepting that mindset. All right, you're depriving yourself. So the process of making decisions and committing oneself to a person, here's the other thing too. It just is like acid on relationships, because that process of making decisions and committing yourself to a person or a course of action is made so much more difficult. Committing yourself to a relationship, even one with yourself or a situation, means that you're making your interests known. All right, you're taking a chance when you're not reactive. When you give input, when you ask for compromise, when you tell people what you need, that you can keep your word to. You make your interests known, and what you're really doing is, in doing that, you're exposing your preferences to anybody who's part of that relationship. All right, and once you've done that, you're no longer completely in the driver's seat. Only when you're working in secret and you're keeping all your cards close to the chest, all right, in secrets, and you're not sharing and you're not part of dialogue, you're not expressing your needs, you're not expressing your preferences. You've got it all here, all right? But you're like a battle going on inside. Once you act like a party to an action or decision, that's the point at which you become a little more exposed. So for procrastinators who fear losing the battle, exposing what they want, think, or feel leaves you feeling vulnerable. Get ready. All right. When you make that transition to living forward and asking, what does this request give me? What does it add to my life? What does it cost me? What does it give someone maybe I care about? What does it cost them? You're making yourself a little more exposed than you've developed comfort with, and you will feel vulnerable. That doesn't mean you're in danger. That just means you're pushing your boundaries a bit. You're expanding your limits. You're actually growing. All right. Sometimes the things we need to learn the most make us feel vulnerable, but they are important lessons to increase our happiness, can increase our effectiveness, our ways that we can now in future demonstrate our self-worth. All right. For procrastinators who fear losing battles, exposing what they want, think, or feel leaves them sometimes feeling acutely vulnerable to others. Now everybody's knows the goods, and how can you keep track of that many other obstructions to what you want? The concern is not that once exposed, they'll be judged as lacking ability, like fear of failure, or fear of success, or of being too successful that they can't keep up. They feel, it may not, feelings are not necessarily facts though, people. All right, check it out if it's fact. You are not powerless, but rather they feel that they will be disempowered. They feel that they have exposed weaknesses or vulnerabilities, and they don't trust that they, never mind trust others, they don't trust themselves. They don't know where and how they will access the control they need to protect themselves. They fear they won't be able to protect themselves. Feelings are not facts. All right. They remaining closed seems a much safer course of action, or in the case of procrastination, inaction. Procrastinating on decisions and commitments can be an indirect way of protecting yourself. Is that true for you? If it is, how true? Okay, since people can't get a clear idea of where you stand if you keep yourself to yourself, so they can't pin you down in relationships. As soon as you make a decision or commitment, however, you may begin to feel trapped or exposed. Your sense of safety, which depends on being unknown, a mystery, and elusive, evaporates. It's now out there for the world to see. Your only protection seems to be in avoiding any commitment, big or small. So you can't give your word to somebody. You don't want to be pinned down. You don't want to be accountable. That way you can shift to something else if it doesn't feel good. At the slightest indication that somebody might be trying to control you. Do you have difficulty committing in relationships because you fear that you will become powerless, that you won't be able to protect yourself? Is that a fear that is appropriate to that relationship? It may be. Okay, what is it that you're picking up? What messages, what body language, what activities have you noticed that feed that fear? Right? Be aware. No one said go to the polar opposite position. You know, fear versus, okay, let's flip to complete trust. No, trust is earned. Is there something you're picking up? Is there something you need to communicate with those people or that person in your life? When you do this, what that means to me is this, and that's not something that I want to be part of or I want in my life. So what do we do about that? All right. You don't have to throw the baby out with the bathwater, whether it's friends, partners, colleagues, committee. You don't have to take on those piles that you're procrastinating all in one fell swoop. You do what you can regularly. So, are you somebody who always needs to know where the exit door is to escape because you feel cornered? Procrastinators who avoid fighting out in the open don't want to let anyone know that they are assessing who in this relationship has power or influence. Okay? Because if they do transmit that, they risk exposing the fact that they want power. Okay? How about just having personal control? How about letting those people who want to fight over power fight over power? There is the N word. No. No, that doesn't work for me. What do you mean by that? Drill down on it. You want me to do that. You're asking me to do that. What exactly does that involve in your mind? All right. What exactly does that involve in your mind? And once I know what we're really talking about here, I'll decide if that's something I feel is enough in my best interests that I should be concerned about your best interests. I'm not sure I'd put it quite that way, but in the assessment phase, that's what I'd be saying to myself. I have to think about that, but I need more information. Or, no, we tried that before. It didn't work. What are we trying to solve here? All right. What are we trying to solve here? So maybe that idea that you have isn't something I can commit to, but that doesn't mean that you have to come back to me with an endless list of suggestions. Why don't we actually put our heads together on this and exchange ideas and come up with another way to get that problem solved or that need met? Be a party, not a fighter. Be a party to things, not a procrastinator. Okay? All right. When you fight secretly, your opponent doesn't know the battle's on. But that's an awful way to live. Always on the defensive. How does that work for you? Well, clearly they have less opportunity to mobilize whatever their arguments are going to be, or to find a way to work around you. But remember, procrastination promotes enemies. Okay? You give people something that they need to oppose about you. They're always having to make up for the work you didn't do. They have to live with agitation and anxiety. Maybe their A-list needs aren't being met, and they find it very difficult to do it without some input from you. Be a party to the solution. You can always say no. Just because you open the door doesn't mean you have to walk through it and shut the door behind you and lock it. You're not condemned to that. There's such a thing as discussion, brainstorming. You're allowed to say no. I can't agree to that. No, that costs me too much of what's important to me. All right, but let's figure out, what is it we're trying to solve here? What is it you need a solution to? And let's put our heads together and come up with something that both of us can agree to. Take the power back that you already have, because you don't have it by procrastinating. You're making enemies and adversaries. All right? You're creating a body of people that will always be aggravated or always resist you. You wait till the next time you need something. It's that tit for tat thing that you're setting up, okay? Needlessly. You can always say no. The other thing that procrastination does do is that sometimes you can get out of things, all right? You can get your own way. And because it's procrastination, you don't actually have to own anything. You didn't overtly do anything, all right? It just sort of happened. The time got away from me. I'm sorry. And then you get to keep that image of nice guy. But that's a false image. You don't need an image that isn't you. You don't need to pretend and protect yourself with anything other than who you are. You're good enough. You don't need to hide behind an image. You don't need to pretend, all right? When you're indirect about it, it's kind of, now you see it, now you don't, all right? But remember, you're creating an adversary when you do it. And you may be being really unfair to a relationship that could add something really positive to your life. All right. So let's just see here. All right. I want to talk to you a little bit about what the thought processes are that individuals who habitually go to procrastination. That the world is not a safe place, that you can't count on people, all right? You don't know. If you open yourself up to somebody, they can really hurt you or negatively impact you. That it's always better, all right, because you can't control things and you can't count on others to control them in a fair and equitable way. If they have power, you have no power, right? And also, it's always better to expect and prepare for the worst, right, than to keep your eyes open and enter into activities or relationships a little at a time, as it's safe to do, and maintain control and a path that you want to be on. Because that way, if anything good happens, it's a bonus. What a way to live, all right? You're living under a dark cloud. So I'm going to ask people now, are there any thoughts about that? Let me have a look here now. All right. So we've got one from, as I said, from Leanne to everyone. I've spent most of my life like that, and I've been learning to do that. I've been learning to do that. I guess what we're talking about lately. I want to hear from other people. What do you think about procrastination? How prevalent of it is it in your life? Sorry. Do you see yourself using it for some of the reasons we've talked about? Fear of success. I'm not, unless I'm dead certain that I can pull this off and I can be a success, I'm going to always hold back. That way, if when I hand it in, it isn't good enough, or it's not, I don't win, or there isn't some tangible affirmation of my excellence, it turns out not to be good enough, I can always say it was because I ran out of time. How can I get my needs met as a daughter when I think she's procrastinating? How can I see that question again here? Okay, how can I get my needs met as my daughter's landlord when I think she procrastinates? I would say that up front, D, up front, I would suggest that you make the repercussions very clear, all right? That if rent isn't paid on time, there will be interest. there will be some repercussion. It's about, in that example, it's about that person offloading their responsibility on you, but they're doing it. Maybe they may do it with others, but they're setting you up as the perpetual parent. All right. So I'm hoping that you have a contract with them, a rental contract, and that you can use the 1, 2, 3. The first time it's an accident, the second time it's a coincidence, the third time there's a penalty. All right. What would those penalties be? The penalties can't cross relationships, though. They can't cross to being a parent so that you withhold love, or it has to be transactional in this contract. All right. And what would any other landlord do? I would sit down and I would go through what any other landlord would do and say, you know what, when you do this, you lose the right to have me as a landlord. And so at a certain point, I don't want excuses. Up front, you need to be thinking, or you need to get help. If procrastination, because remember, this may be a demonstration of that person's perceived helplessness. And that's something that they need to get help with. If this is enough of a problem that it warrants a question. This has obviously been happening as a pattern. It's not a one-off. All right. So, but I need pre-notice if you're running into a difficulty. But by the third time, I am working on the assumption that you're not pulling your weight, and I don't want excuses. I'm not open to excuses. As a parent, I'm not open to excuses, because my job with you is that when I'm not here any longer, you're not making excuse to somebody else who won't care. You've grown up. You've learned to take the responsibilities you need to be safe. And learned helplessness, don't feed into that. Every time you make exceptions, you are proving to them that they are helpless. All right, they're not. There's help available. I can give you the name of many excellent mental health professionals who can help with that type of issue. Okay, all right. To acknowledge, yes, brings out a deep sense of shame. To acknowledge procrastination, do you mean, Isa? Can you tell me a little bit more about to acknowledge what specific part of this? All right. We all have shortcomings, myself included. All right. And seeing it for what it is. There's no point in blaming yourself. This is an act of courage. When you look at something like procrastination and say, gosh, I think that's me. Oh, it's me and that. Oh, I can see myself doing that. Oh, I do that regularly, or whatever of what we talked about today. That's an act of courage. That's nothing to feel ashamed about. What you're actually doing is you're hauling junk that you've been carrying around for a long time, and you're bringing it out to the light of day, and you're looking at it. That's an act of courage. All right? But look at it for what it is. And rather than get caught up in assessing and analyzing, okay? When you acknowledge it, on the other side, take a deep breath and ask yourself, What do I want instead? And find one positive thing that adds to your life positively. And that becomes the target. That becomes what you aim for, because so many people get caught up in the trap of analysis. Analysis is great, all right, but it is not an activity that is going to lead you anywhere other than clarity. You need a vision. You need to know what are my A-list needs? What are my B-list needs? What are my C-list needs? All right. And what need is this costing me? And what would that look like? What would that need look like? It would look like I get out of bed in the morning, no matter how I feel, and I get myself dressed and I engage in some positive activity, good self-care, okay? I feed myself properly. I give myself whatever else I'm going to eat or do. I'm going to I'm going to start the day with reasonable care. I'm going to give myself one activity that the 3 goals, all right, joy, fun, and play. Every day I'm going to find the joy in that day. One joyful event in that day to celebrate. Fun, I'm going to have some fun. I'm going to remind myself I am still alive, and my life may not be going exactly the way I want it to, but I'm alive, all right? And I'm going to celebrate that. And play. What just kind of tickles my ivories, all right? Tickles me pink. And I'm going to give myself a little piece of that too. I'm also going to remind myself that I am a growing, learning, developing human being. And right now, I'm growing, learning, and developing around procrastination. Do yourself a favor. Isa, I don't know if you were here last week. Let me see if I can find that book. Yes, I have. It is right here. All right. This is the book. I'm just going to put that down for a second and then I'll bring it up. This is the book. If a lot of what we've talked about today resonates, this book, Procrastination by Jane Burka and Lenora Ewan, is my Bible, and I suggest you get yourself a copy of it on Amazon or anywhere else, and then start working your way through it, all right? But not just from an analysis point of view, also from a vision. What do I want instead? And probably what I want instead in some way fits in with your A-list, B-list, and C-list needs. And it should also be reflected in your 3 goals, which I hope that you know more about from Conquer the Clutter, our book. Okay, so no more shame, Isa. Okay, no more shame. We're all allowed to be on a path to growth, and myself included. There's lots of room for it. Okay, so I celebrate your courage. Okay, where am I now? To everyone, volunteer. I was really shocked in myself, a bossy person who said to new volunteers, we do it like this. I was so shocked and stopped myself, but you have reminded me I live alone. Yeah, and there is a boss in me, unwarranted, since I have lots of work to do on me and I don't want to be controlling. You know, sometimes it's not our best day. And live forward, pick, live forward. Okay, you recognize that about yourself. Now take one extra step and ask yourself, when you feel the need to be bossy or controlling, how safe are you feeling, right? And how much are you liking yourself, okay? Because if you allow yourself to take pride in what you know, you don't have to control anybody else, because you don't have an expectation that you will know it all right? You can get little phrases if you know that you have, that trait, just be aware of it and give yourself ways to express yourself, like with the volunteers. Could be, one suggestion would be to do it this way because, we pretty much have decided that that's the way here we do it, right? Practice that ahead of time so that you have language that comes to you when you feel whatever it is that grabs you, that you end up walking away feeling like you've been bossy or controlling. All right. And you know what? If you're the first child in the family, probably come by it honestly, because first children in the family are just renowned for being in charge. Alina, I just don't have to get going most of the time. Too many decisions to be made. Thank you for saying that, Alina, because people underrate how much energy it takes to make decisions. Here's a question for you, though, Alina. Do you feel it necessary to always make, or even most of the time, make the right decision? Is there any part of you that's afraid of making the wrong decision? All right. And if there is, I don't mean to pitch the book. Get a copy, okay, of Conquer the Clutter. Strategies to identify, manage, and overcome hoarding. All right, do yourself a favor. And then go to the chapter on Elaine's scaling process. I developed a sorting and scaling decision-making process that helps you keep track of who you are, what you value, right? And how to pace yourself and how to compare. Because when you have a whole jumble of things, like a lot of things, it can become very difficult to sort out which are the preferred ones, which are the necessities, and which aren't. All right, it all becomes like this mass of stuff. There's a way, but you need to respect who you are and what you feel, because you have relationships to your things. If they're still in your environment, you have a relationship with them, and you need to understand. You do it by feel. All right, you don't do it by sitting down and making lists and all of that. All right, but there are a few easy steps to getting yourself on the right path. And if at some point you want to get together on Zoom and just do a run through of what that would look like, then we can do that too. Okay. All right. I'm also a landlord to an adult child and their family. They're not keeping the house safe. The furnace is surrounded by items, as are the stairs to the side door. I've spoken to them about it. Not enough action has been taken. What's your advice? You're not going to like the advice, Kathy. One warning, okay, 2 warnings. And then I would say to them, look, on many fronts, and I know one of the things we do when we agree to become a benefactor to our children, okay, is we make that parent-child relationship more complicated, all right? Because now we're wearing 2 hats, but they're relying on us always opting for the parent hat. Sorry. So what I would suggest is saying, look, I'm going to be back here in 3 days, and that stuff has to be away from any heat source. Remember the safety corridor. Absolutely free and clear access from the front door to a second exit. All right, both ways. Minimum 33 to 36 inches. Minimum. All right. This is where you put your landlord hat on. Around any heat source, furnace, hot water tank, anything else that is a heat source, fireplace, whatever they are. Absolutely free, clear access from the entrance or the exit and the exit to the electrical panel, because that's where the fire department's going to go first if there's a problem. All right. You've got 3 or 4 days to get that in place. I'm coming by if it isn't there. All right. Then I'm going to hire somebody to do it. And you're not going to like it. But you are not going to, put yourself, and if there are grandchildren, all right, at risk. Because it's just a matter of time till something happens. That's just life. All right. And I'm not going to live with that. And it's getting added to your rent. So it's easier for you to do it. And no, I don't want to hear any complaint. I don't want to hear any complaint. And if I come, and I will come in every month, or somebody will come in every month to check that. All right. And if it ever goes back to that, less than a good 3 feet, a good 3 to 4 feet if you can manage it. All right. Definitely 3 feet around heat sources. Definitely free clear access to an electrical panel. All right. Then you won't have to worry who called the fire department. It will be me, because I will not be a culpable landlord. All right. And if your place is attached to someone else's, the importance of doing that, Kathy, just went up 100%, because you can be legally liable for whatever damage or tragedy happens to people who are living attached to that unit. And I know that's a tough thing to do. Another thing you can do on the second visit is, I have, and I know other people who have, now it does risk losing control, all right? There is a risk of losing control here. You can say, when I come back, if it isn't, then I'm coming back again, and I'm bringing a fire inspector with me. And you're going to hear what I told you needed to be done through the eyes of the fire department. Now, they're not going to, they've agreed, and sometimes they will, they'll go on what they call an information, okay? An information call. They may not write up recommendations or requirements right then, but they will come back to verify the 3rd time. And if it isn't being maintained, then it's going to happen anyway. And someone will come in and check every month. And at a certain point, all right, at a certain point, we may have to process for eviction. All right, because I will not live with the pain and the blame, and I can't even imagine the position you'd be in, Kathy, when something happened and loved ones were injured or caught up in a tragedy. Okay, I'm going to do a zoom through the next 6 messages. And if you can't stay, that's okay. If you can, that's okay too. Shoshana, I'm a procrastinator, but in no small measure. Thanks to you, I got going on yesterday. Good for you. Think it also helped to tell a sibling I can do with less. Thank you for that, Shoshana. Hats off. Draw the limits, good boundaries and limits. I know my faults. I don't need you to remind me. And I'm working on them. So get off my back. All right. You're there to love me and encourage me. You're not there to criticize me. Okay, because when people criticize other people, that's like a cheap shot. Okay, they're not doing it for you, they're doing it for themselves. Wants to be superior is usually behind criticism. All right. The use of procrastination is shaming. It certainly robs people. It puts you on the wrong path. Okay. He said, get the book. All right. Get the book and work your way through. And the next few podcasts are all going to be about procrastination, because I don't think I've ever spoken to any client who doesn't tell me that they are overwhelmed and sooner or later they call themselves procrastinators or avoiders. I got through the theory part of procrastination book and stopped at the practice. The book is now lost in the clutter. Yes, we can laugh. It's okay. Oh, you got the book. Okay. Well, I start digging on those piles. And what's the priority? The priority isn't necessarily, okay? The priority is not necessarily to deal with the pile. And when everything's put away, you're going to find your book on procrastination. I would start organizing a bit so it counts, that your effort counts for something. When you pick something up, what is it like and where does it go? All right. To find the book on procrastination, there are probably, truthfully, a limited number of places in your environment where you would have sat and read that book. So start there. Okay. Kathy, okay. I cleaned out part of my bedroom closet. Woot, woot. This past week, I followed your advice, yes, and limited it to 2 15-minute periods. Also did some other sorting, cleaning, minor, but yes, you don't have to qualify it. You don't have to diminish it. It is what it is, okay? It's great. Thank you so much for your podcast and your help. Jim, procrastination, what? Yes, thank you, Jim. That's the title. It's in the list there. Pick. That is really helpful when bossy. Use phrasing. Check my own mental. Yes, I know. You know, I years ago I realized that when I'm even in my own mind coming down hard on people, I'm not liking myself too well about something, and that's why it's important to deflect it. It doesn't matter. Just don't do it. Okay, learn from it, because you can only take care of yourself. You can really, truly only meet your own needs and understand them, okay? Start there. Because we're all responsible for having our needs met ourselves. We are the only people. No one else is responsible for that. I'm the oldest girl, and what, yes, it's expected to be an example. I kind of wondered, Vic. Alina, oh yes, thanks. Marilyn, I'm francophone from Swiss. Wonderful. I did not understand the name of the writer on the book. Okay, it's Jim has it in the group chat, but here it is right here. Okay, Jane, Jane, Burka, Burka, and Lenora, Lenora, Ewan, Yuen. All right. Take care. We'll see you next week. Thanks for hanging in. Bye, everybody. Have a great week. You're welcome, Dorothy.
Thank you.
You're welcome.